Okay, so I'm just getting this going. Um, okay, so let me pull it up. All right, here we go. So, for those that are just joining, welcome back to today's meetup to talk about the power to change. What an amazing journey we've been on. I have some resources for everybody because I found some stuff that came with I have an audio version, and I usually don't do audio versions. And for those that don't know, that sometimes an author's audio version sucks because they just don't read well. But Craig Groeschel he's kind of pleasant to listen to. He's a professional podcaster, so it's not a bad listen if you choose to do your Audible version. Put it in the chat if you already have the book or if you have the Audible or whatever. I'd just be curious to know if anybody already has grabbed it just yet. But either way, it's okay. You can still be a part of today's conversation. We're gonna start off with we're going to do a little intro piece, and then we'll come back into talking about some of the content from the book. I have a little bit of some clips from him too that I'll be able to share, so it's all good. And if you want to receive reminders in the future about what books we have coming up, if you'd like to submit some ideas for books, please make sure you're a part of our text thread book club, which is in text that keyword book club, all one word, all lowercase, to 844-934-1314. And then you too can get access to all the deets. So if you need the links, if you need everything, it's going to be right there. Okay. So let me pull my screen back up and we can get it going. So one of the things about this book is, and then I want to turn it over to you guys for a conversation, is that we're going to talk about the author. I don't know about you, but I think it's always helpful to discuss the author and kind of understand where he's coming from and who he is, or he or she is. And so today is Craig Groeschel. He is a senior pastor at Life Church. He provides teaching and leadership and guidance for church, but he also has a podcast just on leadership. And so what I love about him and his podcast is honestly one of my favorite podcasts. I've been listening to this since maybe about 10 years now, honestly. Close to 10 years, maybe 7 years. He's been doing it for a long time, even before podcasting was really the claim to fame in like 2020. He's been doing it for some time. And it's one of my favorite podcasts, especially if you are doing anything in leadership or desire to do anything in leadership. He's, I would say, the GOAT or one of the top leaders in discussing ways to be an awesome leader. And so one of the things that I really love about him is how he envelops biblical principles and makes it practical. And I think you'll see that through the book. And so don't worry, I'm not going to be talking much longer. But I wanted to just highlight this. And then also that he's a family man. So he's a Christian, he's a believer, he's a family man, he has 6 kids, and, devoted husband. And so I think that all plays into who we're reading from. And then also too, this helps us as we look to get context. There may be some things that you don't agree with in the book, or you find that he did not nail or get right. And I would love to hear those viewpoints, if not today, at our final meetup at the end of the month. If you want to share some of your, final thoughts on this book, I'd love to hear them. Critiques even, because we don't always have to align with everything that is presented. So I want to kick it off. Instead of traditionally, I do like this, general introduction, but today I wanted to be a little differently. And so I wanted for maybe just 1 or 2 volunteers to come off mute and just share with me, we're talking about the power to change, and we're going to get into a little bit about what the book is about. But no matter where you are in the book, or even if you haven't cracked it open, I would love to get your perspective on, do you believe it's possible to change? Some people do, some people don't. And I'd love to get your perspectives. And what do you think is needed to, change? Like, do you think it's possible to change? Anybody can go for it.
Yeah, I think it's possible to change. I mean, I've known people to not believe that it's possible to change, but I definitely believe it's possible to change. I think you have to have, you have to want to change, first of all. And then for me, you have to have faith in God. So yeah, I believe it's possible to change.
Does anybody else want to echo or share a different perspective?
I'll echo. I do think it's possible to change. I think it takes a lot of effort, and a lot of people don't want to put in the effort, which is why they don't change and why it seems like people can't. But I definitely think it's possible.
Anyone else?
I think it's possible to change, to be able to see your weaknesses and just praying about your weak areas and examining yourself. I think it's possible to change, and you have to want to be able to change.
So it's some love. Go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say I would agree with Brittany and Tony that change comes when you want to change, but sometimes wanting to change is not enough, because we tend to, like, our human nature keeps us in a safe space, in a box, because it's a comfort zone. So that's why, like, with women that are in domestic violence relationships, a lot of times they stay just because the thought of leaving it creates so much fear of the unknown. And without being too drastic with an example, like, just in general, we tend to like to be in a familiar place. And so then sometimes we'll want and desire to change, but then it's hard just to know the steps to take to change and to free fall and experience what's on the other side of what our norm is. But I think it's possible.
It's possible. Okay, so I appreciate you saying that it's possible, but it takes sometimes a little bit more than just belief.
Yes,
and that's
and
interesting.
desire.
And desire, because you can have a desire, but then things can remain the same. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more in today's conversation and highlight maybe a few points from the book. One thing is that I found that for those that have the Audible version of it, that it comes with a guide. And so I'll be putting that in the chat. I have the link available, so when I get a chance, I'll put it in the chat, where you can download like a 50-page PDF of, additional like exercises and questions that you can ask yourself and work through in your own space. And so I encourage you to do so. Next, I want to just pull up this video, and we're not going to watch all of it because it's about 30 minutes in and of itself. But I wanted to just highlight just a little bit of this excerpt to give us some context to what the heck are we even listening to, or what is this even book about, and what does it mean to identify our needs to change. And so let's see if I'm activating this well. There we go.
Hey, it's great to have you back for another episode of the Craig Rochelle Leadership Podcast, where I believe it is absolutely my calling to help you become a leader that people love to follow. If you're new to our audience, we drop a new teaching on the first Thursday of every month. But wait, this isn't a Thursday. We're doing something we've never done before. We're releasing an episode on Tuesday. And this is a special day for me, and I want you to be a part of it. Today is the official release day for my brand new book called The Power to Change, Mastering the Habits That Matter Most. I believe this book is going to be a game changer for so many people, and hopefully you as well, because if you're anything like me, you know that there's almost nothing more frustrating than wanting to change something about your life, but not actually being able to change it. You know this in your leadership. You want to be more empowering, but you're not more empowering. You want to delegate, but you don't delegate. You want to trust people, but you don't trust people. You want to be more organized, but you're not organized. Well, in my new book, The Power to Change, what I do is share very practical principles that will help you identify why you do what you do, and then learn how to change what you do and really help you grow in your leadership. And so my goal, honestly, is to equip you, my leadership community and family, with very practical content that will help you grow. And to be super clear about the book, our podcast is for leaders of every kind, but this book is written very clearly from a Christian perspective. So I just want you to know that. And no matter what you're facing in your leadership, I absolutely know that there are powerful truths and practical application in the book that will help you lead better. So today, what I want to do is I want to give you a free section from the book. In this excerpt.
So before we move forward, I just wanted to highlight that I know that this is a leadership podcast, and for some, you or he hosts a leadership podcast, so the conversation is around leadership. And for some, you might be feeling like, okay, well, I'm not necessarily looking for leadership tips, but I want for you to make sure that you're considering all the areas where you are existing as a leader. For anyone that's a mom, that's a leadership role, right? Sometimes we take that for granted that it's a leadership role, but that's a leadership role. You might be, so on your job, you might oversee somebody, or you just might be a man of one, right? Leading in your department or having to manage a certain area of the work. And even when you do work alone, there may be leadership responsibilities, ministry related work that you may be a part of. If you have any roles or responsibilities at church. So there are many different facets where we have to display and distribute, and demonstrate leadership characteristics. And so I want for everybody to feel like he's talking to you, okay? So I don't want you to feel like, he's talking to them over there because I'm not in that position. No. He's talking to us all. It's applicable to us all in some area, in some facet of our lives. Does it sound good? Thumbs up. We're A-okay. Again, I just want to make sure we're moving together. So we'll continue to listen to a little bit more of this, and then we'll break for another part of another activity and conversation piece around the topic of change.
And I would succeed all day long, but by evening, my motivation, wanting to change and trying to change, but not actually changing. How do I know? Because I've tried so hard, so many times to change, only to hit the same brick wall of failure time and time again. Before I started learning to master the habits I'm sharing with you in this book, that was my life. One example. Knowing my eating patterns weren't wanting to do better, I repeatedly tried to change my diet. I made commitments to eat only healthy food, and I would succeed all day long, but by evening, my motivation withered and my willpower waned. I would end my successful day of eating right with a little bedtime reward snack of brownies and something salty, maybe chips and salsa, and a little ice cream. The next morning, I'd wake up feeling guilty and do the walk of shame to the kitchen to see the evidence in the sink and in the trash. Determined to do better, I would eat a healthy breakfast, followed by a nutritious lunch and dinner, but then a bedtime snack of cookies and chips and cheesecake. Finally, I would feel defeated and quit trying. It seemed I had the desire to change, but not the power to change. You've been there, right? You've tried to change too, and it hasn't worked for you either. But why? We want change. We want to change. We want life to be different. We long for more. Sound familiar? But honestly, we get tired, exhausted, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or all of the above, change is hard. Trying to change is draining. Our problem is a deficit of power. Add to the exhaustion our sense of shame because we keep settling for less. We feel frustrated, like I would during my morning after walks into the kitchen. We begin to despise our desire to change and our apparent inability to do so. Here are some common behaviors so many of us desire to change. First, there are what I call the starts. We want to start something, as in, I'm going to start to grow in contentment, or I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I want to feel closer to God. I want to breathe new life into my marriage. I want to get out of debt. I want to start to be consistent in reading my Bible, or escape a toxic relationship, or begin to exercise regularly. Then there are all the stops, as in, that's it. I'm done with whatever. I want to stop stressing out, or stop showing frustration, or stop being impatient, or stop being late. I want to stop overeating. I definitely need to stop drinking to excess, or stop procrastinating, or I need to finally stop thinking negatively. Whether or not I listed any of your starts and stops, you know your problem. You've wanted that something, whatever it is, to change for years, but you can't seem to find the silver bullet. If you journal, maybe you've looked back on what you wrote years ago and realized you're still writing the same thing today. Or maybe you've been going to a counselor for quite a while, but you feel you aren't progressing like you hoped when you began the visits. You're struggling with the same old issue, still hoping for that elusive change to come.
So I want to pause it right here because I want to take a moment and I want for us to work through a few of our starts and stops. And then we'll come back to finish out that thought from him. And so I want for everybody, if you haven't already, if you have a journal or piece of paper, a scratch sheet of paper, a notebook, whatever you have, let me know in the chat when you have something to write with. But if you could go ahead and do me a favor and write down your list of starts, and we'll just put 2 minutes on the, or 3 minutes on the clock. You don't necessarily have to share all of these, but just write down as many of your starts, behaviors that you want to change. And as we highlighted in the book, one of the things that, he mentioned, like, I want to start praying more, I want to be a better mom, or I want to do X, Y, and Z, right? So whatever those starts, whatever behaviors you want to do differently that you want to start doing, let's make a list of all of those, and then we'll come back in about 3 minutes. And we'll just take like 1 more minute for that part. Okay. And then for the sake of time, we're going to move on, but continue your starts list, right? So as you continue to have the conversation with yourself and reflect, add on to this list the things that you're interested in possibly starting, making modifications to, improving, right? And so then let's switch gears, talk about the stops. And so I want you to write down your stops or behaviors you want to get out of your life or rid yourself of. I want to stop doing this. And so you can make your list of your stops now, and let's take another 3 minutes. So just 1 more minute, and then we're going to move on. And then we'll just plan to share out one of each. Okay, so we'll go ahead and now we'll just share. If you're still writing, that's cool, but we're going to move on for the sake of time. And if we could just have everybody go around and just share 1 start and 1 stop, that would be great. Hopefully you have a few that you've put on your list, but one that you feel comfortable sharing. Let's go around.
I'll start. My starting is starting projects, and stopping is allowing fear to set in by thinking I'm not ready.
Good. That's good stuff. I'm excited for you in that area, and that's powerful as you identify where you want to grow and change. Who wants to go next?
I can go. My start is I want to start getting up earlier in the morning. And my stop is I want to stop procrastinating when I know I need to be somewhere at a certain time.
Mm-hmm. Those are huge.
That's my life story.
You're right. I know. I understand it very well. Like, I thought I had more time than this, and it was fleeting. Who would like to go next?
I can go. My start is to get up earlier to be more productive in the day. And my stop is completing projects before I start something else. I think. I don't know.
So I guess I understand what you're
I'm
saying.
confused. Like it was all
Yeah.
running together for me. I'm tired, but
It's all good. And we're gonna definitely keep this conversation to 1 hour. So we have a few minutes left in the conversation. But the stop would be, I think it would be stop starting projects before you finish
right.
the other.
Yeah. That's the
Stop.
right wording.
Stop
Thank you.
leaving projects incomplete.
That's right.
Yeah, that would be what you're stopping. You're not gonna continue to have unfinished projects.
Yeah.
I'll say for me, my I want to start being more giving. I want to start giving more. I do give, and I want to grow in that area. And then I want to stop doubting God. There are times where I find that I'm doubting him, even when I need to be reminded, oh yeah, okay, you're doubting right now. Believe God, it's gonna work out, it's gonna be okay. So I would think doubt and worry kind of at times have been at the forefront, and I'd like to stop doing those as much as possible, because they don't help anything, do they? No. So anyway, those are thank you guys for participating in that. We're gonna go ahead and for the sake of time, I want to look at this message, because I think he also kind of shares a little bit more to give you some context in the book. Again, I'm going to share a PDF resource that you can download. I'll also be giving away a free copy of the book today. And so we'll go through that too. And then, so let's just go here. Let's see.
Hey, have you ever felt stuck, right? It's one thought and then it leads to another and another and another. And all of a sudden you have all these negative thoughts that have just compounded on one another. Well, we're going to be going to catch up with Pastor Craig for Behind the Message, where he's going to be talking about the new series, The Power to Change.
Cheers.
You are with us for Behind the Message, and we're talking about The Power to Change. It is a new message series that we're in, as well as Pastor Craig's new book. Mastering the Habits That Matter Most is something that you're passionate about.
Very much.
But there are so many people who want to make the lasting change, right, in their lives, but just can't. Why do you think that is?
Well, Jazz, I think so many people, like kind of I was for years, is they've got really, really good intentions, but not necessarily the best strategy. And so we're trying to change, but we're trying to change in not the most effective way. And so we're going to look starting with scripture and then supported by science, because science kind of just confirms what God said anyway, and let God's word lead us through a process that we're not just trying to get behavior modification, but it's more spiritual transformation.
That's so good.
And that's lasting change. If we change behavior without changing the heart, the behavior comes back. So we're going to let God change the heart that changes the behavior.
You know, that's good, because that's a great segue into the concept that you introduced, which is empowered change. So how would you say, if you could define it, but also how would you say that empowered change is different than willpower?
Well, we know that willpower tends to wear out. For example, if you make a lot of decisions, you get decision fatigue. If you say no to the donut 5 times, you might eat half the donut the next time and then the other half later and pretend like it didn't matter because you ate it in 2 settings. But what we're going to do is, instead of looking at willpower, we're really looking at spirit power. And the good news is that when we are weak, God's strength is made perfect in us. And so that sounds kind of preachery, but it's actually really powerful when we learn to live it out. And so we're going to take God's word, the power, and learn to apply it. And I promise you, it's going to be effective.
Yeah, I heard you say we're not training, but we're going to stop trying and we're going to start training.
Exactly.
Which is really kind of the concept of this.
Yes.
Now I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. And so I would love, because I think somebody's going to be surprised by this answer. How is something like flossing something that saved your life?
Well, so years ago, I read a book called The Power of Habit. And the author talked about keystone habits. And so what I did is I felt very undisciplined.
Okay.
And so I chose the thing that I hated the most, which was flossing, and decided to floss. And so when I floss, I tell myself, okay, I am a disciplined person. And that one habit compounds into other good habits. So the presence of one habit leads to other good habits. The absence of it leads to the absence of those habits.
Yeah.
And so it's actually a game changer. It's
Yeah.
really small,
Yeah.
but it's the small things no one sees that leads to the big things that everybody wants. So
That's so good.
so floss.
Yes, which most of us probably don't do, to be honest.
Dental hygienists love that. Yeah.
Hey, closing this out, there's probably somebody who's watching who may feel like they're in a season of just being stuck right now. What is something that you hope that they get out of this message series?
Well, first of all, that I understand when you feel stuck, because there have been things I've tried to change forever that I just couldn't change. And I want you to just go ahead and feel the frustration of being sick and tired of being stuck, and then understand that there is hope, that I promise you that there is power and there are principles in God's word that can help you change. So if you're sick and tired of being stuck, call it what it is, have faith. It starts next week, and I believe that God has you here for this time to do a work that's going to be really special and honored.
That's right. You're not going to want to miss it. Make sure that you see every part of this message series. It's going to be powerful to where you can stop trying and start training.
Let's go.
We'll see you there.
And so I think that, some of the summaries for the book, I'll share that one of the things that I thought was really critical, and it's amazing that my mother kind of touched on it already, was the idea that it's not enough just to believe in order to make change. And he highlights that in the early parts of the book, that it requires you to not only just want change. So he talks about this, and I wrote this in my notes, and I'm going to just pull these up right quick. He talked about it's to change what you do, you need to first change the way you think of you. I'll say that again. And I should have had that on the screen, but I don't. So to change what you do, you need to first change the way you think of you. And so essentially it's this, not just shifting the behavior. So for instance, he mentions about, just creating a new habit, and, I want to work out. And I'll say this for myself, that working out has been an on and off again issue. Well, I don't want to say issue, but something that I haven't been consistent with in more recent years of my life. One point in time, it was a no-brainer, and working out came very naturally to me. In more recent years, it hasn't been as much of a priority, and I've struggled with it in terms of being consistent over the course of time. I'll do it for a few weeks. I may do it for a few months, and then at some point I fall off, right? But I have a desire to wanting to work out on a consistent basis. And so what he's saying is, when you find yourself slipping back out of, this desire to change, it's rooted in you haven't got to the roots or the underlying belief of why that habit is the way it is. You haven't looked at what is it that I'm really believing about myself that I need to change, how I see myself and how I'm viewing myself, and because then I can easily begin to shift. So it's like he says he compares it to being in a garden and pulling up weeds, and you just pull up the top of the weed, but the roots are still there. It's the same process. And so I pause there in case anybody has any thoughts around, it's not just enough to believe, but then you also have to actually, really get to the root of how you're perceiving yourself and what you think of yourself. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on that? Or did you identify with that piece in the book as well, if you stumbled upon that already?
Yeah, when I heard him say that in the book, you have to change the way you think about the way you think of yourself. That was like an aha moment for me. Yeah.
So essentially, and I have this in my notes too, he says it's not about acting different, it's thinking different.
Mhm.
And that aligns with one of my favorite scriptures, Romans 12:1-2, right? And I'll pull that up because I don't want to butcher it while I'm trying to quote it. But Romans 12:1-2, which basically is that you have to be renewed in your mind. And it's interesting how it lines up with scripture. So the things that the Lord is saying, we have practical ways that we can really apply it, that our change begins. So Romans 12:1-2 says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. That's one of my favorite scriptures. And so I pause here in case anybody else has any thoughts or, considerations about just how change is really contingent upon our mindset. Does anybody have any feedback on that?
I do.
Yeah.
I love the part when he said, allowing God to change the heart and then the behavior will follow.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So that kind of made me think about that when you was reading Romans 12, 1-2.
Yes. And allowing God to change our heart. And with that, as we know, our heart is our mind, right? It's that where our thoughts are, where all of our emotions lies in our mind. And so as we think about that, one of the other things he highlighted, which I've shared in some of my coaching courses, and we really highlight this, and I meant to pull up a graphic and I can see if I can pull one up even right now, but he talks about fixed mindset versus growth mindset, and how so essentially, if we're looking to change, we first have to fix our mindset. And it's interesting because I think the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, I need to start working out. I'm just going to start working out. And that's the solution, right? I just need to change my behavior. And he just highlights that, no, Dacia, you have to change your mindset. And so I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? One of the things I would like to say as we, begin to power down on this discussion is that I want you to continue to look at areas where you are looking to start and stop things. I think it's important to really think about that. I did find my graphic for the fixed mindset. I'll pull that up in a second. But as we look at areas where we can have growth mindset over fixed mindset, and one of the things that I have in my notes is that he talks about that fixed mindset is the result of your inability to change. So fixed mindset is where that's why you have the inability to change, and it's rooted in unhealed trauma. So go figure that our blocks or our inabilities to change start from or are rooted in some trauma that we haven't really dealt with for whatever reason. So it's like, not that you needed more to put on your plate, but it's like, okay, God is really just showing us that, okay, you need me to come in and heal these other areas of your life. And so I want to pull up on the screen here. You'll see the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And so growth mindset is really representing freedom. It's the person being able to persevere in the face of failures. Effort is required to build new skills, finding inspiration in other success, embracing challenges, accepting criticism, desiring to learn, building on your abilities, right? It's the belief that you can, that it's possible to be open. Like, that's the growth mindset. And the fixed mindset is these limiting thoughts and then also limiting beliefs, right? So you don't want to, you avoid challenges. You give up easily. You're threatened by other success. You desire to look smart. Effort is fruitless, right? You just think like, I don't want to try. Ignoring feedback and, feeling like I'm at a plateau in terms of my abilities. Like, I can never get better in this area. And it's really just negative thinking. And we're bound by our mindset. We can be freed by our mindset, or we can be bound by our mindset. And so I want to just pause here if anybody has any thoughts or feedback around the growth versus the fixed mindset. And maybe have you identified areas previously? Is this new for you, or have you identified areas where you're like, okay, I definitely have been operating in one or the other categories, or maybe somewhere in the middle, right? It doesn't have to be one extreme or the other.
Yeah, this concept isn't new to me. So I have been actively working on growth mindset.
And it takes work, right? You would think that choosing freedom is like, okay, it's simple. Yes, I want to be free. Who doesn't want to be free, right? So you're like, yeah, for sure. Let's just do freedom. Like I'm for it. But when you start to really apply and work through, again, because you have unhealed traumas and you have a stack of limiting beliefs and you have all this stuff that you've been working through or subconsciously are carrying. I think that's also for me the aha moment, is that there's so many times where I've had things in my head that it's like, how long have I been thinking that? You know, as a limiting belief or a limiting thought that I wasn't enough, or I couldn't do it, or that I didn't have the strength to choose something differently for my life. Like, how many times had I did that before stopping to say, hey, that's not true. That's just not true. And I'm speaking these untruths to myself and affirming them as truth. And then therefore operating out of this untruth. Like I can never, I'm always going to be this way. You know, this is just who I am. All of that is a part of a fixed mindset. Has anybody ever said that in any capacity? Anybody? Yeah. So just considering that those things are what they are and that we need to do a better job of working past that. And it takes supernatural strength. And I do appreciate, that's why I'll say I do appreciate Craig for his folding in of spiritual context, because we need God to get free. We're not going to get free without the Lord. We need God to get free. And so I'm grateful. I'm ready to get free. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to get free. I'm ready to get free from some things and from some situations and from some limited thinking and from some, I'm tired of lying to myself, in some areas. And so I hope that you are too. We'll continue the conversation next at the end of the month. So hopefully you can get a chance to continue on in your journey in the book. I want to see if I have anybody on the YouTube side of things that's tuning in, watching in. I know I have it streaming there, so I just want to check in just to see who we have that may be watching in. I see we have a few people over there as well. So let's see who we got. If you could comment in the chat if you're watching in on that side. So I can see who you are. Just let me know who you are real quick so I can incorporate you. I want to give away a free copy of the book now. And thank you guys for being a part of this discussion. I think it's been helpful. This book has really been life-changing for me already. I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. It's 5 parts. So hopefully you can get through the next 5 parts by the end of this month. If you have any book suggestions, please feel free to comment underneath. If you're on YouTube, you can comment in the comment section. If you have some ideas, you can send me a text. If you want to text to the 844-934-1314 number. I love that I finally have memorized that number. It took me a long time, but I finally got it down. So if you want to text me there with some suggestions for future books that you'd like to pick up or maybe suggest to the group, I'm open. So let's make this what it needs to be. But thank you for being a part of today's conversation. And so what I'll do is, this is my only way that I know how to give stuff away without having some other questions prepared. Let's go ahead and just do the number draw. And so if you could just, if you're catching the replay, this part does not include, this is for the live the live part. So if you're going to catch the replay, then this doesn't include you. Okay. But we love you still. Thank you for being with us for the replay. But for our live viewers, if you could put something in the chat, 1 through 100. And then if you win the book, you can, if you have a copy already, you can gift it to somebody else in your family. Maybe you can encourage them to join in on the final call as well. So give it to a friend, a coworker. Everybody needs to learn these skill sets. So you're not wasting your time. I promise you, this book has been golden so far. And I really love Craig. I'm a fan of his. And so, okay, so I'm just going to give you another minute to put something in the chat. Okay. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and look at the chat and see what we got cooking. Okay. All right, so the closest to the number without going over is Sister Tony. Congratulations, you've won a free copy of the book. Woo, 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 woo. All right, so I will have that shipped off to you. I'll text and get your address and mailing address, but congratulations. Thank you for being a part of today. And as promised, what I'll do is I'll text it out to the full-on group, but I'll send you the link to the PDF for the downloadable feature. But if you want to go to, let me see if I can find the link real quick. I'll put it in the chat here in case you want to copy it down. But there is a specific website. It is, oh, it's in my notes. Okay, that's where I put it. HarperCollinsChristian.com. So I will put this link in the chat feature now. And then I will text it out to the group. So if you're not a part of the book club text thread, please go ahead and join in now. It's text the keyword book club, all lowercase, one word, to 844-934-1314. But this is really a helpful tool. It's like an exercise book. It's a workbook that is coinciding with the text, and it's available, especially for those that have the audio version. But I figured we could just share it with the rest of the team if you have a physical copy. But you can copy that link, put that in your notes, or put it somewhere safe. But I'll also text that out to the group. So if you're not already on the list, please make sure you subscribe to the list by texting the all lowercase book club, all one word, to 844-934-1314. This will conclude today's conversation. If you have any final thoughts, I'll leave the floor open for a 2-minute recap, but I just want to thank you guys for being a part. Does anybody else have any other questions or thoughts that they wanted to share? With that silence, I'll take that as a no. And let's come back at the end of the month. I want to hear about your aha moments. Take inventory of your start and stops, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Take care. Bye.